Would you try to unmute yourself? We can't hear you, Sandeep.
Yeah, got that. Understood. All good.
So quickly before we go live, Mr. Raghavan, so once the session is over, the concluding remarks continue on the same link. So Mr. Deepak Ayo and Mr. Bharat Puri and Indrani will probably be joining. I'm just keeping it quickly. And so that will be at 5:30, I believe, that's when we sort of hard stop. And so let's start the session. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome you to a really power-packed session.
You want us to stay back? You want us to stay back when?
Yeah, you could stay back, and you could maybe switch off your videos. That's fine. The video and audio flow. That's not a problem. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome you all to the final session of the CII National FMCG Summit. It's a power-packed session. We have some fantastic speakers today. Mr. Ram Raghavan, who is the Managing Director of Colgate-Palmolive India, would be moderating the session. Mr. Sandeep Bhushan, Director and Head of India GMS, Facebook. Mr. Nikhil Chand, Director Foods and Confectionery, Nestle India, and Mr. Amit Jain, Managing Director, L'Oreal India, are the panelists. So without further ado, I would hand it over to Mr. Ram Raghavan.
Thanks, Jayasuriya. Good afternoon, and a very warm welcome to all our delegates and our distinguished panel on screen with me today. My name is Ram, and I'm the Managing Director for Colgate-Palmolive India and South Asia. Let me once again begin by thanking the CII for putting together a wonderful summit. Well done to Indrani and her entire team. As one reflects back on the past couple of days, you would most certainly expect to hear the word consumer or shopper used in absolute abundance in any FMCG summit. But what's been truly interesting is how often the word digital has been used or alluded to over the past couple of days. It only feels apt to be ending our summit with a session on winning with the digital consumer. There's absolutely no doubt that we live in a digital world, whether it's a journey of discovery, entertainment, commerce, or just simply connecting with each other. Technology-enabled digitization has and will continue to transform our lives. Let me take the mobile phone as a simple example. I'm sure many of you would agree with me that not only is the mobile phone a third arm, a second mouth, or a second nose, or a third thumb. In fact, for most of us, it's all of the above. This transformation truly puts the consumer at the center of the universe. More importantly, a universe she controls with her thumb and now with her voice as well. The implications of this are tremendous for brands, organizations across categories, products, and services. From understanding consumer journeys, empathizing with them, to allowing for multi-way conversations and experiences, brands will need to constantly reinvent themselves to remain relevant when it matters. I'm truly thrilled to host this conversation with our esteemed panelists. Given the breadth of experience they bring, I look forward to an insightful hour ahead. With that, I'd ask Nikhil from Nestle South Asia to get us going. Over to you, Nikhil.
Good afternoon, good evening to everybody, and I hope Ram, I'm visible and audible. Winning in the new digital, in the new normal for Nestle is really something that we believe should be very close to our heart in the new normal. And a lot of time we talk about digital, especially in the context of FMCG and the kind of people attending this forum, it tends to become either extremely complicated or something which is overwhelming, or on the other hand, oversimplified. And our approach has really been to keep this extremely logical and extremely actionable. And therefore, we focus on simply three aspects of digital, which we are capturing under 7 Cs. The first, and we'll give examples about that, of consumer centricity. The opportunity digital offers to have deep, meaningful connections connections that are built on two-way conversations, sometimes multi-way conversations, the aspect of creativity, which sometimes is not possible in other mediums, content from a strategic lens, the choices that you may want to make when you look at digital, and of course, the aspect of commerce. The first aspect I want to talk a little bit about is the consumer. And the word consumer sometimes, makes us think as marketers and FMCG professionals of a person who's really consuming voraciously all our products and is constantly consuming digital. Companies will come and throw data at you about the time and hours spent on digital, and that sometimes makes us feel that our consumers are unidimensional. Either they only are on Facebook, WhatsApp, YouTube, Instagram throughout the day, or they're only eating and consuming our products. The reality, of course, is that this is in context of their real life. And therefore, what's very important when we build a digital strategy is to be really consumer centric and understand digital in context of the real world rather than digital in context of the way we would think they live their lives. And therefore, the concept of audience first thinking, which sounds extremely intuitive, allows us very holistically to look at our consumer not from one dimension, but multi-dimension, and keeping in mind the context of how they live. Are they cooking? Are they living? Are they washing? Are they consuming products in isolation? Or is there a context to it that we can bring to life? Therefore, an example that we've done with our powerhouse brand Maggi under the concept of cooking made simple. We realized that we are talking to two different kinds of consumers here. Moms who are willing to experiment, explore, and challenge themselves. And young people, novice cooks who enjoy and learn cooking and are really being wanting to known as not just a budding in foodie, but also a budding cook. And therefore, a digital strategy which was consumer centric allowed us to use split audiences and have customized content for each of the cohorts. For mothers, since her desire was to improve the quality of her cooking, we had expert tips, for example, how to make your paneer softer or bring the restaurant style food at home. But it's for young people, it was really basic things like how do I chop onions without making my eyes water? How can I make my favorite Maggi noodles even more interesting with a simple twist? And therefore, with a consumer-centric mindset, you can really explore the power of digital. The second aspect is connections. Digital allows us to have very, very deep, meaningful connections with our consumer. An example of this journey of Maggi noodles, for many of us in this room, the first thing that we learn to cook either is to make a cup of tea, boil an egg, or potentially make a pack of Maggi noodles. And we had a TV campaign which spoke about my first cook. Leveraging the power of digital, we created stories about tell us what was your first cooking experience, what was the emotion behind that, as well as mothers talking about the joy and pride when they saw their sons and daughters cook for the first time and what meaning that had beyond consuming the product. Another example of forging real, meaningful relationships was taken by us in COVID times. Our youngsters live in a very, very social real world, and birthdays are moments when they are the stars of their life as well as stars within their groups. They were not able to meet their friends physically, and therefore, with the help of a simple tool using Facebook Messenger, we were able to authorize mass personalization at scale. All you have to do is go on to KitKat Messenger page, tell us your friend's name and potentially the kind of interest area they have, and voila, a personalized happy birthday message contextual to what their hobbies are would be sent. So very simple, meaningful way not to do a brand push, but to form a deep connection where it matters most to our consumers. Another example, which is really meaningful and something I'm personally proud of, is the example of leveraging digital to really talk connections with larger communities. Milkmaid is a brand which is more than 100 years old, and in fact was the first brand Nestle India started producing. This brand is extremely relevant even today. With the power of digital, Onam, which is a big festival in the south of India, we were able to leverage a purpose-driven campaign. All you had to do was to go on our social media page and pledge that you would like to share payasam made with Milkmaid to other people. In 10 days, in 10 districts, over 10,000 bowls of payasam were served for people to create a simple celebration, an important moment. When we speak about connections, sometimes as marketers, as FMCG professionals, we became proud and arrogant about how many followers we have. And this follower word somehow gives a sense as if there are people out there and we are the hero and we are center stage. I want to challenge that thinking. Actually, consumers don't follow brands. We should be following our consumers. In the center stage is the consumer and not the brand. And when you invert this thinking and try and form connections, really the impact can be very, very meaningful and long lasting. On Maggie, we had a Maggie website called Maggie.in, which had interesting recipes for all occasions. When we thought about forming a connection during the pandemic, we actually did something a world first where we open sourced all recipes on the platform, tied up with YouTube influencers, and for the first time in the history of Maggie ever, made possible access to recipes which don't need to use Maggie products. Because for us, the connection was more important than consumption of the brands. At that time, the consumer wanted solutions how to cook, and that was not the right time to push our brands. Similarly, with Milkmaid, we saw a very, very important trend and growth in baking, and masterclasses were organized to build this connection. A last example of forming meaningful connections is on the Dalgona coffee trend, which was really, as you know, the #1 trending coffee conversation happening this year. And with our premium brand Nescafe Gold, conversations around this were kept in mind. On KitKat, a brand which talks about a break, how do you talk about the concept of a break when the entire country is in lockdown? So you repurpose your brand message and actually thank heroes for not taking a break. Again, simple, relevant, but things that can extend beyond a social conversation. The last example of a social conversation that we've started is Maggie Desh Ke Liye 2 Minute, a year-long initiative that we have partnered across different aspects of enablement, health, and hygiene, where with the power of the brand and the digital platform, we are leveraging things like the Agri Challenge, where over 26 colleges, young students were able to virtually visit farms and solve problems for the agricultural community, and leveraging the power of digital, provide a platform for over 10,000 home chefs to start their own business. So really, if you unlock the power of conversations and couple with creativity, it can become a huge unlock in the new normal. The next example of creativity, and sometimes what happens with agencies who come and present to us, we get caught up in the power of the creative versus a simple thing of solving a genuine problem and not just selling an idea or a product. Milo as a brand is a fairly young brand in the category. And the genuine problem that we were hearing from our consumer was low physical activity in the new normal. We created and conceived a campaign with the Athletics Federation of India, designed popular games and exercises, as well as had an energy hour so that we could solve a genuine issue that the consumer was facing. Entertain and engage with creativity. Sometimes we lose the context of what the brand is, in what context the consumers are consuming our brands. This is also a social medium. The word social doesn't mean just a gazillion people connecting with each other mindlessly. Social means this aspect of entertainment, enjoyment, and pleasure. And what better way to offer that pleasure with a great cup of coffee, either made in the classic way or made from the world's best, or through interesting twists like dark mint or citrus coffee crush that would allow consumers to really have a great moment with Nescafe. The aspect of content is extremely important to think about strategically. Many times we have seen that companies and brands that do well in digital have a clear content strategy. It is not a discovery as we go along. It is not about deciding the media strategy first, but actually what is your content strategy? What is your hero content? What is the content that will be evergreen and always on? What is the consumer choice and the campaign objective? Are consumers aware or unaware of your brand? Do you want to acquire non-buyers? Is it a consideration aspect? Is it a retention aspect? If you put this and layer that with great content, the multiplier is enormous. If you do content for creativity's sake, for sure you'll get a few eyeballs, for sure you'll get a few WhatsApp forwards, but it will not necessarily build sustainable brand. Two examples from Nestle, a young brand like Milky Bar, India's #1 white chocolate treat. The objective was to stay engaging with kids and have a very clear content strategy on TV, build that on social media with fun, imaginative things which children could do with waste and leftover like pencil sharpening, and link that to another content strategy on AI, where with this brand, if you scan a pack, you could discover much more about the wonders of space. On the other example we have is Maggi Veg Atta Noodle, restage that happened last year when consumers are becoming more conscious of infusing taste and health together. And here we have shied away from creating more content and single-mindedly worked on focusing on the prime content. So be clear on your objective, and that clarity, of course, will help you define a sharper and more effective content strategy. An area that I'm always delighted by when it comes to digital is this choice on KPIs. It is probably one of the most over-measured and under-interpreted mediums or functions that we work in. I don't think we have so many measures even for our cost of goods or commodities, but we have so many data points to look at digital, and sometimes this can be extremely overwhelming for us and for our teams. My proposal is to look not at the data, but try and look at the so what. If my click-through is high, better than industry standards, what does that mean? If my bounce rate is improving, what does that mean? If I'm having a better engagement rate, what does it mean? What is the impact of that on my brand health and my purchase and the imagery? When you focus on the so what, you will not get overwhelmed with the ability of measurement, but actually get more actionability into effectiveness. Commerce, the last aspect that I want to speak about, digital offers, of course, immense possibilities in commerce, and I'm sure I don't need to speak about this. All of you are experiencing the boom in e-commerce. The point I want to speak about here is keep it simple, search, extremely important, understand the consumer journey. There is also an aspect of gamification, and we're realizing very quickly that like in real life when consumers window shop for products and brands, there is also a lot of window shopping happening online. And therefore, brands which offer visually stimulating content tend to have better conversion to sales. Lastly, e-commerce can also be leveraged much better if you have clear segmentation. For Nescafe Gold, as an example, we do sharp affinity targeting, and that helps us become the best seller on the platform for premium coffee. So in summary, simple 7 C's that never fail, consumer audience first thinking, deep, meaningful connections and relationships, keep it like a conversation, don't have the arrogance of followers, creativity, solve a problem, entertain rather than tell, content, have a strategy, content, choices, many choices in KPIs, choose the so what, and of course, convert to sell, because that's really what we are here for. Thank you for your attention. Back to you, Ram.
Thanks so much, Nikhil. That was truly insightful. And I think the clarity with which you bring the 7 C's to life is certainly wonderful to see. I'll ask Amit to take us into their journey or their digital journey at L'Oreal. So Amit, you're up. Amit, you're on mute. You gotta unmute yourself. But you're still on mute, huh? Your screen's coming up, but you're still on mute.
Mr. Jain, if you could just stop sharing the screen, then unmute yourself and then share the screen, please, if that helps.
Sandeep pro tip, unmute before sharing, because otherwise the screen comes up and you can't see anything.
All right. Now is it okay?
Perfect. Perfect.
1 second. I've stopped sharing. I'll go all over it again.
Perfect.
Visible now?
Visible and we can hear you.
Excellent. All right. That was really inspiring, Nikhil. Milkmaid, Maggie, Nescafe brands I grew up with. Fantastic. And, a very, very good evening to colleagues at the CII and compliments to CII, Bharat and Deepak for putting this fantastic conference together. I guess this is the tail end of the day, and I'll make my remarks very crisp and short. So L'Oreal is 25 years young in India. Relative to the venerable brands which we just saw, and all the brands which you see here, there I think something like 45 of them, less than half of them are in India today. So we have ways to go, but I'll share a few examples of we in L'Oreal India have been doing in this space. And I have a challenge on forwarding. How do I forward? Yep. Oh, it works. I think there's a time lag. All right. So stating the obvious, I have borrowed a slide from the consultants to this conference, BCG, which shows what's happening in terms of digital adoption of consumers, especially over the last 9 months. I'm stating the obvious that digital services are going through the roof. In fact, I was reading somewhere digital diagnostics with doctors is up 4x, and there's incredible change which is happening over there. And I think a lot of us who are seeing this have experienced it for our own products and services, where we are seeing what is estimated there could be a trebling of online consumers in the next 5 years. So what we are seeing is a sea change over here. And this is something which most of us will relate to. So once again, this is, with due permission from Kantar and BCG COVID survey, that says that online purchasers, first-time purchasers, are up to 24% in food, and which we saw the magic with Nikhil shared. As far as we are concerned in the beauty business, 18% of the consumers who are there, who are people who have purchased for the first time. Yeah. So what's very interesting, of course, is given all the issues which one has faced with the crisis in terms of physical reach, 66% of the new e-com shoppers are supposed to be coming from tier 2 India. So what we are seeing is a transformation which is across categories, across geographies. I don't want to belabor the point too much, and of course languages. More and more of the whole digital behavior is happening in vernacular now. So with this, L'Oreal India, we obviously are trying to build up our reach and our distribution and a connection with consumers the long and hard way. We've got incredible examples of Nestle on how the millions of shops and the hundreds of millions of consumers they reach, or Colgate, which of course, Ram can write a book about. So now there's no way we can ever replicate that, at least in my lifetime. So we said, all right, we are going to bet big on digital, and we set ourselves a vision in line with a global parent of being the #1 beauty tech company. So very simply, digital will encompass all aspects of our company, marketing, sales, communication, consumers. We believe that beauty tech is going to be an amalgamation of products, services, technology, data. And we do it in an agile manner such that we build new consumer propositions and experiences for our consumers. So the way we are looking at it in L'Oreal is a significant transformation where we are looking now as a continuum shift from products which were fundamentally, we were a science-based company. It was around ingredients, formulae, massive R&D expenditure. That continues. But in addition to that, now we are looking at beauty, which is augmented by services. So for example, diagnostic services, we have a hair care brand called Kerastase. So if you go into the salons, now you will be able to experience a digitally enabled service which analyzes the hair and scalp and helps you online upload your data and then look at the progress over a series of visits to the salons where you're going through your Kerastase treatment. So, this is online and live. This is not in the future. Personalization, for example, is going to be very big. In the next few weeks, we'll be launching a service called Skin Genius for L'Oreal Paris in India. And this tool will analyze your skin type and the issues, if there are any, and then it will make a recommendation of the regimen which can be followed. Yeah, so there's lots of stuff going over there. I'll pick up one thing which I thought was interesting, which is phygital. Yeah, where physical meets digital. And this is really interesting. A lot of people talk about online plus offline. We believe that integrating digital with the physical experience in a store is something which can create a lot of value for consumers and the shopkeepers, especially now in this COVID environment, which is likely to last for a while right now. Yeah. So in this low touch or no touch environment, how do consumers experience your products? So we are looking at virtual try-ons, diagnostic tools, which allow you to find your hair color or your style without touching testers or doing anything which is dangerous and impacts your health. Yeah. So this will give you a sense of the variety of things which are right now available on various of our brand websites. We believe that we can enhance the beauty experience of consumers and guide our consumers through their decision makings by making it very easy through virtual makeup. You will see that on the left, brand on the left, which is called Urban Decay. There's color try-ons. There's artificial intelligence powered skin diagnostics. There's beauty consultations, which are now powered by robos. Not yet available in India, but we should be doing that by early next year. And this is entirely because we believe that AR, AI, and voice are the future of the beauty experience. And now a variety of these services and facilities will be made available to consumers on our brand websites, be it L'Oréal Paris, Maybelline, L'Oréal Professional. And to show you a real life example, I would invite the audience right now, pull out your mobile phones, yeah, turn on your cameras, and I'm going to do it along with you, and scan the QR code. Yeah, try it, Ram.
Amit, I don't think we can see the QR code. There's a gray box covering that side.
Oh, I'm so sorry about that.
If it's on the right-hand side of your screen, I think there's a gray box covering it right now.
Okay, that's such a pity. Thank you for giving me the heads up. I was hoping for a live demo to show that this is not all, in the realm of imagination. But anyway, if you have the time, go on to the L'Oréal Paris .in website and check it out. So it's quite amazing for a white-haired guy like me. I can paint my color, hair black, brown, purple, pink, right on the spot. It's online and live. And this, of course, is another example of how we digitally service consumers and give them an experience which is low touch and very, very safe from the safety of their screens, where they don't have to come to the shops anymore. So similarly, here's another example of a makeup brand called Maybelline. Our lady colleagues will be very interested in going into Maybelline.in and checking out their favorite color of lipstick or eyeshadow, all done in the comfort of your homes from your screens. So, well, this is some part of how technology helps deliver the digital experience to consumers. I'd like to now change tack and talk about the fact that technology and tools are very good, but nothing is possible without the human being behind it, especially in a market like India. So this is an example. We have worked with our salon networks, which excess of 40,000 of them, and working with their beauticians and hairdressers. We created an exclusive app for professionals, which have got e-learning videos in a variety of languages, where they can book their classes online. And this is something which was happening pre-COVID. During COVID, within the first 1 month, we managed to create a live streaming facility, which allowed all these hairdressers and technicians to talk to their trainers online, chat, video interactions. And the whole idea was that all these salons were shut down for almost the first 4 months in most of the states. And can you imagine, lakhs of these poor people were out of a job. So through this online streaming and chat, it allowed them to get trained on building social media connect with their consumers. And while the salons were shut, they could directly now reach their consumers through the digital medium and once again build that incredible link which they share with consumers. All of us know when we go for a haircut, we tend to have a chat with our favorite hairdresser or barber, as the case might be. So this kind of revived that emotional link with those people we rely on so much. And thus came in something which all of us might have read about, which is conversational commerce. So while the salons were completely shut for 4 or 5 months of the year, as the case might be, more than 50% of the distribution, we're talking about more than 20,000 of the salons, 170,000 of these hairdressers, now they had access to a personalized platform, a personalized link of every salon on Facebook, WhatsApp. I'm sure Sandeep can verify that for us later on, to reach their consumers and have an online e-consultation. And then, of course, with the example, with the advantage of a hyper-local delivery like a Dunzo or a Swiggy, actually get your favorite brand of Kerastase or L'Oreal in the comfort of your home after an e-consultation with experts. So these are all live examples of stuff which has happened over the last few months and now is turned into a very serious revenue stream for these hairdressers who obviously were having a really tough time in trying to make the ends meet over the last few months. A slightly different example of, a very interesting skincare brand which we have, which is called Kiehl's. They've got some boutiques around the country, but of course, needless to were shut down. And in this example, once again, the unique proposition of Kiehl's are these Kiehl's skincare representatives. We call them KCRs. And once again, with the help of the website, this allowed the Kiehl's KCRs to get online with their consumers and through voice and chat, do consultations for the skin, the hair, as the case might be, and then take them through an online catalog and once again give them access to their favorite brands while the boutiques were shut down. So what we saw were very, very impressive results. Consumers who experience these eKCR services actually have an NPS, a Net Promoter Score, of 95%. So these are, simple examples of how digital can help us pivot, in this low-touch world where safety is paramount for our consumers. And we continue adding to the consumer experience and opening up access to our brands and adding value to consumers over a period of time. Needless to say, none of this is possible without our people. Yeah, so I'm stating the obvious, but all the lovely stuff, the smokes and mirrors which I showed you, all of this is only possible if we have passionate digital activists, execution, and one needs to make serious investments behind building capability. So to give you an idea, about 70% of L'Oreal India was trained in some aspect of the digital consumer experience or delivery, as the case might be, over the last 6 months. And somebody very famously said, execution eats strategy for breakfast any day. That is definitely the case for the digital world. Yeah, so with this, I just want to borrow, a phrase in French by one of our former CEOs who said that, seize what is starting. And there's a famous phrase which was used in 1966. And now, after all these years, there's nothing which is truer, which is we are right now on the cusp of a digital revolution in India. And it's up to all of us over here to seize the day and create a lot of value for our consumers and our stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amit. And I know you've been extremely humble. We love the philosophy of how you've integrated tech fundamentally into the essence of the being, for the reason of existence for the company itself, and a redefinition of L'Oreal being about beauty tech. That in itself speaks more from a pioneering point of view than anything else. And having watched and admired what L'Oreal has been able to do on an e-commerce footprint globally, it's wonderful to see L'Oreal India drive some truly stellar innovations coming in the world of digital. I really love that word. Personalization at scale. I'll become a lifelong partner of yours if you can permanently reverse my growing gray. But at least now I know what I'd look with it, right? Last but certainly not least, wonderful to see L'Oreal invest in people. A fascinating number: 70% of the organization being trained in digital capabilities. That speaks wonders for and is a testament to how L'Oreal is playing out its beauty tech strategy. So thank you so much for that, Amit. With that, I'm going to move us over to Sandeep and to talk to us about two platforms that need absolutely no introduction whatsoever. Sandeep, with that, over to you.
Hey, thanks. Ram, am I audible? Is the screen visible?
Perfect, Sandeep. Yes.
Great, thanks. Hey, first up, thank you to CII for the lovely, deep conversation right through the conference yesterday and today. And also thanks to the panel. Both Nestle and L'Oreal, not only globally, but even in India, doing exciting work that we are more than happy to partner and learn from. And therefore, I'm just going to step back a little bit and just look at the overall context and really focus on opportunities all of us have. Opportunities to drive growth. I think that's a fundamental premise that certainly we are working off from. And also a couple of watch outs. So I'm going to just step back a little bit, and I'm also going to lean on all of the wonderful examples that both Nikhil and Amish shared as well. So we know consumer behavior has changed. There is a completely different normal, but the tools exist. I think that's the most important part here and now. And many businesses, as we've seen, are beginning to deploy them. We are privileged, 3 billion plus community across the world. India internet is now 500 million and 4 million on our platforms. And Ram, Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, Messenger, so the portfolio is larger, and hopefully Oculus in India shortly. So the portfolio gets wider, but connections at the core. We also get a good sense of how things are moving because we are also the home for business. 200 million businesses globally. Just in India, for example, 150 million businesses are on WhatsApp. So just the scale of how we are learning continues to grow. And we're privileged, I think, in the context of COVID, connections, communities, business going digital, we were part of the change and we are part of the growth opportunity. So fundamental question is, what is the consumer behavior changed? And the reason I ask this is to tie it into, therefore, the opportunities that are opening up. We've looked at opportunities, and this is work we did with BCG in 3 frames. Reversal of past trends, we think they may go back. There is acceleration of existing trends, which is primarily digital, and that we know will continue to move forward. And there are certain trends that may or may not stay. For example, the interest in hygiene. It may go away unless policy or brands work hard. But I think the significant point is digital and the expansion and the numbers you've seen. Each one of us been carrying those data points. And I think the important point is to reflect on what is the change. And this again is chart I borrowed from the BCG work. And think of this as the y-axis as repeat rate intent, and x-axis as trial, and social media right on the top. We've always used it. We want to use it. Online education classes, we've used it. We don't want to use it further. Clearly, school is not fun. But online shopping, clearly, small usage yet, under 50% of the population, but keen intent to grow. So payments, media, shopping. And these are the themes, actually, no surprise, that therefore suggest where the world is headed, showing up quite clearly. Digital influence, this is really any action that I take towards my purchase, basis a comment, a share, a review, an ad. Digital platforms up 25 points across categories. This is another secular trend. But that's because the consumer shifted. Consumer is not a CPG consumer today and an auto consumer tomorrow. Consumer is a consumer. And across categories, therefore, the starting point actually that came up is the move. Now, auto started on a larger base, CPG on a smaller base, but 25 points added, right? So here is therefore where the consumer is going. So the question is, what will it take for us to win, right? We think we can think of it broadly in funnel stages, pre, during, post, and of course, there are lots of conceptual models on it's round, it's straight, it's confused. But I think at a simple sort of conceptual play, just going to hold this. Lots of movements, and we've heard these phrases, right? Health and wellness, smart shopper, remote way of living. Question is, can we craft them in actionable terms for us as marketeers? And there are loads of solutions against each one of these at the pre-purchase, purchase, post-purchase stage, loads of solutions. I'm going to take your attention to one point just to make the point of where the opportunity lies. Look at point number 4, which is in the pre-purchase stage, where segmentation today, because of digital, is a possibility. And we are talking of segmentation across multiple variables, all the way from demographics to category, first-time purchaser, repeat purchaser, and so on and so forth. When 30% of CPG consumers said they were going to downtrade, 30% also said they're going to uptrade. The question is, for my favorite brand of toothpaste, which parts of my basket will uptrade, which will downtrade? For that cooking oil, which is the exotic Saturday dinner that we're going to cook, and which is the one that we may want to save some money on. So fundamentally, segmentation is possible only because of digital, and because all consumer digital, here's a growth opportunity. So the fundamental premise that certainly I want everyone's attention on is digital is not just a communication medium. It today allows for new tools that create growth opportunities. I'm not going to belabor all the points here, but just to make the point that for every single trend point, there is a very clear digital solution here and now that's available, and many of your marketing teams are well aware, but these continue to get more and more exciting. So I'm just going to jump this and get to, therefore, the fundamental. We are CPG. We care for reach at scale, relevant offering, and results in offtake terms. Everything else is sort of a leading indicator or an interim indicator. The fundamental is that 500 million Indians are now on digital. If your plans start from TV, I think there's a question to ask, why not, right? They've also said they have an affinity to brands. We saw a 25-point movement in willingness to engage with brands based on digital input, right? If you're not measuring critically outcomes that matter to our P&Ls, which are either sales or critical imagery variables, we're wasting our time. Don't waste your time on digital if you're not going there. And third is, are we building for platform, for example, creative, and is there agency capability, whether it's your media agency or your creative agency, right? These are the principles. And again, I want to outline, this conversation is worth a while, not because we can do two interesting things, but for the fact that 500 million Indians can be motivated on their mobile if you build for the platform and measure revenue or a leading indicator such as key salience variable. 5 tools, therefore: in-person experience, online presence, hyper-localization, personalization, and media mix. This is what is new in the arsenal. But the point I'm again underlining is the fundamental of why CPG will win remains the same. Its massive reach, its sustained salience, and its relevance, measured in outcomes. Let's look at, therefore, these 5. Again, this is a full bouquet. Each corporate, each brand is at a different stage of how they can use it. So I'm just going to run through this quickly. But fundamentally, these are the pieces that give you the tools to channelize that growth potential. So let's first talk of in-person experiences, and I cannot explain this better in the way, for example, L'Oreal just showcased. Amit's explanation in my chart is the one he could easily have had, or it's the same charts. But the point is, it is possible. But more importantly, I think we are also able to intermediate with experts. The experts have gone missing in the situation of social distancing, right? And how can we bring, for example, influence into the conversation is also a possibility. All the way down to unboxing virtually. For example, the phone companies do that in terms of experience. So this is available now. Conversation, which is continuing to engage all the way from every aspect of the funnel. So whether it's messenger, and here you're seeing SBI pushing for app install, or consideration, which is you start on a message, on an ad and take it to message, or even at the end, a sales effort. And this was Flipkart using WhatsApp for the Big Billion Day, which is the insight that consumers have to segment themselves, because not every online person is actually a consumer of e-commerce. And therefore, self-selection saying, do you want help or do you want to close the deal? Therefore, WhatsApp plays a role in completing the funnel for Flipkart, and you can see some numbers which are exciting. Moving to fulfillment, I think whether it's presence, commerce, now we know all formats exist in India, whether it's direct partnerships, every single brand or companies taking a slightly different route. Important is to know that whatever be your presence, there's a way to help. The tools now exist, and whether it is doing cross promotion, let's say here in the case of Huggies and Lazada, or all the way to app install to your own D2C app. So whatever be your program, there is a way to help. But not being online is certainly not an option. Hyper localization. We've asked the question of, can digital do vernacular better? Can digital do segmentation better? Bring it all in. And I will just state this one little ad unit from Mondelez. You've heard of the generosity campaign recently, where you were served an advertising with pin codes of with the retailers in your pin code. So we've really crashed the whole journey from whether I should have regional targeting, should I have Telugu ads or Tamil ads. We've gone all the way down to pin codes, ability to customize message on the fly. And these are thousands of retailers addressed by Mondelez seeking consumer walk-in into those stores. Influencers, well understood. And I'm going to just jump this. The only point I'll make here is measure for impact and not for the interim measures. The last one, all of this is in the context of consumption of all media by consumers. There is not a case to make that digital is standalone. But the media mix models are broken because they're looking at 3-year data, which clearly digital was at a very different play. And therefore, tools such as Nielsen's custom mix modeling are now available, which actually collapse the learning journey to 26 weeks. So while results like this have been available, so here's the Nino case study where sales is up when they're advertising on mobile, on Facebook. More interesting is Nielsen CMM measuring mom and pop retail sales of Cadbury to make the point on how ROS is split. Eventually, it comes down to this. When the dollar comes back, marketers have a seat on the table. And that's actually the core piece as marketers we should think of. And really, no better time than driving both effectiveness and efficiency than now, given the stresses on both growth and P&Ls. So I would certainly urge all of us to look for all the solutions we now have here and now for building business. That was my piece.
Thank you so much, Sandeep. Listen, let me start with a little bit of a personal journey for you. So recently, we were doing a lot of rural immersions, when obviously these are virtual. But I'm talking about rural as in less than 1,000 people in the village. So really deep down, the supposed dark part of the country, right? Or media dark part of the country. And it was fascinating for me to know that just about every household we visited, every one of them had a Facebook page. And forget that, almost every one of them had more friends than me. Now that I'm certainly not a benchmark in terms of the number of friends I need to have, but the fact that a village with population of less than 1,000 people, their networks are significantly larger than the village itself. I think that for me perfectly epitomizes the concept you spoke about, which is reach. So it's now, we talked about the 3 Rs, and then there's reach coming to life brilliantly. Second, in an old and cliched world we lived in, all of us would ask the question, how does one make something in the digital world viral? I think these days the question most people ask is, how the hell does this become WhatsAppable? And I think that again is a classic testament to the kind of reach and more importantly the impact, as you rightly said. It is about the tangibility of deliverable impact that digital has done. Listen, thank you again, gentlemen. That was fantastic. It would be, I don't get it's not often that we have such an esteemed panel with us. So I do have a few questions that certainly I am keen on learning from every one of you. So we get into that part of the session. Nikhil, you spoke about content, and I'm going to ask three of you a question that builds off the point that Nikhil made, which is content coming in with context. So while content is absolutely king, there's no question about it. Content is becoming increasingly more and more relevant, which is where and how a message is received plays a significant role in its impact. Would love to hear the three of your thoughts on how we can understand and empathize better with consumer journeys. So I'll kick it off with Nikhil. You're up first, Pradeep next, and then I'll end with Amit on the same question. So, Nikhil.
Thanks, Ram. I think one thing we always do as marketers, we overestimate our ability to communicate and underestimate the ability of the audience to empathize with us. And I think digital is actually a very powerful tool to correct that, because, like Sandeep mentioned, you can measure it real time. You can test and learn. You can do it vernacular. You can do it pin code. You can segment. So I think if you have a clear needs to use segmentation, put the audience first in your thinking, and not have a push model. Because most of us as marketeers have learned in a TV medium or a press medium, which is the broadcast medium. None of us have grown up as marketeers, at least our generation, which is the pull medium. And that's why we always think also, मेरी Facebook ad कैसे लगेगी? But that person is not on Facebook looking for ads, he's looking for his social connections. So if you contextualize that person's day, you can have brilliant content. If it's a broadcast mindset, don't go down digital.
Yeah. Yeah, if I may build on that, Ram. In fact, I remember my rookie days, I was a Brook Bond brand manager on Taj Mahal Tea. And Taj Mahal Tea was this Zakir Hussain ultra premium market, 2x the market price. And it was also bought in 5 rupee sachets in Coastal Andhra. In my market was in Rajamundry. You'd be like, which wholesaler is going to pick up the biggest sachet, right? So that was the conundrum. And we merely made peace with whatever was on our brand key. But the fact remains, the context of that 5 rupee consumer who wants a tea for a certain very different functional attribute than the status quo on our lead scope, we did not even seek to resolve. Our possibility today is to do the traditional consumer understanding that we do and actually acknowledge it and paste it on our walls and believe we can do something about it. You know those lovely pen portraits that go back to the drawer? That's not okay. And therefore, whether it's demographics, whether it's life stage, the cues are there on the digital platforms. Our learnings are there. It's how do we bring them and then serve the communication in that context. And when you say pin code, for example, you really dramatize the point, right? So pin code into life stage in some sense, or even category understanding your first party data, such as L'Oreal, for example, has over the years wonderfully built. So that's the play. And I think we want all marketers to not rest till they're able to resolve what they hear truly from the consumer and where the communication is.
Perfect. Amit, something you'd like to add?
Yeah, certainly. I'd like to borrow from what Sandeep has already said in his presentation, which is at L'Oreal, we believe that now, back to Hansel and Gretel, the fairy tale. So consumers leave data crumbs throughout the entire journey. Yeah. And now it is up to us marketeers for collecting these data crumbs in a meaningful manner and interpreting them. So, I think along with Facebook, we've taken advantage of their great insights and building in the cohorts and the tribes. So, for example, the same advertisement for Garnier has been sliced and diced into 120 variants using artificial intelligence, depending on what were the cohorts driven by the data crumbs, which Facebook so thoughtfully provides. So yeah, it's all in the data.
Wonderful. If you look at the answers each of you provided, it's from the days of broadcasting down to personalization based on data crumbs. Who could have ever said we would be talking about that? And I think all of us have been guilty of what Nikhil started with, right? Which is let's throw that net out there as far and wide as it possibly can, without realizing what part of it is working, if at all. So, my second question is on a slightly different subject. Brands, all you guys are guardians of some of the biggest brands in the country. Driving and building credibility has always been a priority for brands. And in a world where the definition and the spectrum of influencers has changed so radically and continues to change on almost a weekly or monthly basis, what advice would you offer our audience on building the right influencer models? This time, Amit, I'm going to ask you to kick us off, since you kind of got us growing with a different group of influencers, which is the salon, the perfect person with which you share your life secrets, your hairstylist. Then I'll follow that with Nikhil and then Sandeep.
Yeah, I'm going to give you a slightly boring answer on this one because we made a lot of mistakes and we've learned the hard way. It is the first principle is a lot of due diligence in selecting your influencers. So the sheer attention to detail in sifting out who are the right influencers for your brand is absolutely critical. So having the right influencers, doing the background checks, ensuring you got watertight contracts with them. This is really boring stuff. Most of us marketers hate these kind of this rigor. But I would earnestly advise you because we have burnt our fingers now and then around the world. So do invest in the due diligence. That's one. And then what do you do in the due diligence? You figure out what is the values match between the influencer and your brand. Yeah. To avoid a system of conflict later on. You want a long term association with the influencers. So identify a tribe of influencers whom you believe will work very well with your brand qualitatively, quantitatively. And this values match is something which will always ensure that later on we are not sorry for the association with the influencer who can have a very negative connotation on the brand. And the second bit of rigor I would urge is data and measurement to identify who are the right tribes driven by the influencers and are we indeed getting an adequate ROI against these associations.
Not worrying at all, Nikhil. As guardians of big brands, I think these are the nuts and bolts that continue to make sure that these brands stand the test of time. So absolutely sage advice. Nikhil, anything you'd like to do?
Quickly building on what Amit said and totally agreeing with him what he's saying. Brands are human and influencers are human beings. So look at them as two human beings coming together versus celebrities which endorse your brand. Sometimes marketers confuse influencers to be celebs. They can or cannot be. So if they are human, do they humanize your brand or do they personify your brand? If yes, go for it. If not, stay away. Secondly, we don't ask the right questions. What do you want to influence? Why do you want to influence? And with whom do you want to influence? And the KPIs of measurement typically end up being only reach, which actually by essence is contrary to what influencers should be. It's reach and engagement. And lastly, to Amit's point on closing the loop of measurement, tribes of influencers are not segmented well. There are many influencers who have great reach, but they are broadcast influencers. And they're great influencers which build relationship with their consumers. And like the example Amit spoke about, the salon specialists, coffee baristas, for example, food chefs, and therefore be clear on what you want to do versus just using somebody's power and piggybacking on that. So very simple approach.
Yeah, I love it, but importantly, the different aspect of redefining who the influencer is. It's not a classic celebrity, but the barista, the barista owner or perhaps a salon specialist, and that in itself amplifies the credibility of each and every one of your brands. Sandeep, your platforms bring to life influencers, so who better than to close this question off than you?
Thank you. I do want to again step back. And if you look at influencers as those individuals that you connect with or serendipitously run into who can influence your purchase, I would cut them into POS influencers, the fantastic example of beauty advisor, barbers, baristas, or all the way to POC, point of communication, which is how Instagram influencers, for example, just to bring it back to the point you were making. And I think the digital opportunity is to take charge of both of these. On the point of sale influencers, I'll just give you an example and some fantastic work at L'Oreal as well. Samsung, for example, has trained 1,000 promoters. Remember, promoters are the ones who suggest what phone to buy because such a complex category between all the variables who have now a digital presence and catchment into their areas. Maruti dealers now are all on Facebook because they are the ones that get asked what next, right? So the power of the point of sale creating catchment communities on digital. Then we go into in the point of communication, which is influencers as we know them. And on here, I think the whole point is building authenticity, and on point of sale is about building the tools. So I think this is the continuum. I think very clear action plan and great learning, by the way, over the years we've been able to get, and some of the exciting work in India over the last 12 months. I gave you two examples looking fantastic. And eventually it comes down to the measure of sales. This is entirely about sales. including, for example, if I take a half minute more, Ram, is the influencer that you pick up, let's say, in terms of your authentic connection on an Instagram or Facebook. The asset works exactly like an ad unit in your media plan. It is not out of control. You can decide the reach parameters and the frequency lay as part of a media plan. So here's the new Colgate total. 4 exposure, says influencer want 4 exposures, available now at a store nearby at a 2 plus lovely toothbrush offer. That's a possibility. So you get in charge of, therefore, the whole play of influencers.
Good pitch.
Wonderful. It genuinely is a world out there in terms of translating just about every avenue, classic measurable impact that all of us ultimately live and die by, I guess, right? Whether it's brand attributes or love for a brand, or whether it's financial results that we all see. Lovely to see it. Listen, you guys have been phenomenal, and I could keep asking you a million more questions. I know the audience would love to hear from you on that much more, but I am conscious of time. Thank you once again, gentlemen, for a fantastic, truly insightful and thought-provoking session. I know you've sparked many, many thoughts and perhaps multiple notes being taken across by many delegates. So thank you very, very much once again.
Thank you so much, Ram.
Being on separate platforms. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, Ram. Thank you, CII.
Thank you again, CII. With that, I guess, Jay Surya, over to you. And Bharat and Deepak, Indrani, over to you guys.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ram. Fantastic session. Very, very engaging and insightful. And thanks a lot to Sandeep, Nikhil, and Amit, all of you. A very, very interesting session in the winning the digital consumer, which is the game of the time now, So that kind of brings us, this session brings us to the end of the National FMCG Summit 2020. And now may I request Mr. Deepak Iyer, the chairman of the summit, who was the chairman of the summit and put it together, and who is also the co-chairman of the CII National Committee on FMCG, to please deliver his concluding remarks. Mr. Iyer, please.
Thank you. Can you hear me, Indrani?
We can hear you. Can we see you? Let me see. No, we can't see you. Yeah, there you are.
Okay, perfect. Hello and good evening, everybody. It's been a terrific 2.5, or I'll say 2 half days at the CII FMCG Summit, and quite a lot to walk away with as we embrace a new normal. We started the fireside chats with Lakshman, Bharat, and Varun, and some great provocations from Martin Reeves as well, all of which I hope has stimulated some strong thinking around the shape of things to come. I particularly like the call out that things won't go back to the old normal as we knew it. It will surely mean that we'll have to deal with new consumer behaviors, be it around safety, immunity, or digital engagement, and so many others that were brought alive by our panelists over the last 2 days. Prabha, Sameer, Varun, and Anil then spoke about building brands during and post-COVID, building brands with purpose, building digital brands, and many other interesting approaches to brand building. Kalpesh, Damodar, Sunil, and Ashish then discussed next-gen approaches to sales and distribution in a rapidly changing retailer landscape. With retailer consolidation, retailers playing multiple channels, and innovative retailer partnerships emerging, and the future of Kirana. Namit, Sridhar, Sanjay, and Salil then discussed rural India, which is re-emerging, I should say not just emerging, re-emerging as a powerful growth engine, and how CPG companies can think very differently from the conventional ways to build stronger business in rural. Be it, like we heard, getting to know the new rural consumers, unlike the rural consumers that we thought we knew, the new route to market, or even company stores in small villages. And then we concluded just now with Ram, Amit, Sandeep, and Nikhil discussing ways to escalate our engagement with the digital consumers, be it digital commerce, digital marketing, BTC, or many other facets that they touched upon. So a big thank you to the panelists and moderators for being with us and sharing your valuable insights on a plethora of subjects in bringing alive the shape of things to come in the new normal. Much appreciate that. I also have many other important people and organizations to thank. So let me start with thanking our partners who have supported this event. Our principal partner, Google, our premium partners, Colgate-Palmolive, Hindustan Unilever, Johnson & Johnson, and Reckitt Benckiser. Our diamond partners, Godrej Consumer, Jyoti Laboratories, Lotus Herbals, Mondelez, Parle, Pidilite, and Tata Consumer. Our platinum partners, Asian Paints, Britannia, Emami, Haldirams, and Nivea. Our gold partners, Adani Wilmar, Bajaj Consumer, L'Oreal, Mars Wrigley, Perfetti, and Zydus, and of course, our knowledge partner, BCG. And I would also like to thank a few people who have had a very big role to play, not just in the summit, but also in this committee. So starting with Bharat Puri, who has most ably led the CII National Committee on FMCG, and under whose leadership the committee has emerged as a key and a primary platform for addressing critical issues and concerns raised in the sector. A major objective of the committee has been enabling perspective sharing amongst the top minds of the industry through sharing of best practices in the FMCG space. And this summit, this National FMCG Summit, is a part of this thrust. A big thank you to the summit core members, my colleagues Ram Raghavan, Prabha Narasimhan, Samir Satpathy, and Shantanu Banja, who helped in curating the session and also in securing our panel of speakers. A very special thanks to Abhik Singhi and his team at BCG, our knowledge partners, for putting together this entire summit from ideation to final delivery, helping curate the agenda, the content, and securing speakers. And needless to say, this effort has also been supported by all members of the CII National Committee on FMCG. And the same spirit, our gratitude to Indrani, Rajiv, Jayasurya, and many other CII team members for the terrific work behind the scenes to bring the summit alive. Last but not the least, before I wrap up, I would like to thank all the participants on the industry and media for being with us here today. Without you, there would have been no such event. Your presence has always been a key motivator, a key energizer for organizing programs of this scale and stature. So thank you, folks, and good evening. Back to you, Indrani.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Iyer. Thanks a lot for a very comprehensive concluding remarks. I think I'll still request Mr. Bharat Puri to have one last word. Mr. Puri, please.
Rani, my simple last word is we started yesterday by saying that, listen, at the end of today, if we are buzzing with ideas, we've had a very interesting 2.5 days, then it's a job well done. And all the feedback that we've had is that it is a job. It was gracious to thank everybody. I think the person who needs great young Deepak himself, I think the industriousness, the dedication, and the thought that he put into the summit, the way he owned the summit has been, in partnership with Abhik and you, Indrani. I think the three of you are really the architects of the summit, while all of us seem to get a lot more. Thanks to the three of you. I think it's a job very well done. I think you've again raised the bar. This summit, every year we say, oh my God, what will we do next year? And next year turns out to be better. But this year's summit, I think the three of you have done a wonderful job, and my hearty congratulations. And I think I speak for thank you for giving us a lovely 2.5 days.
Thank you very much, Mr. Puri. I share this kudos that you are giving us to the CII team, Rajiv, Jayasurya, Tanmoy, and Srimita, who has worked really very, very hard over the years, and the tremendous guidance that we have received from you and Mr. Iyer all through as we were building up to the summit. Enormous amount of support that we have got from the community and the FMCG players. So this kind of brings us to the end of the FMCG Summit 2020, and we look forward to culling out all that has come out of it to now create a new work plan for our committee for the year ahead. And we wish everyone a very happy new year and a very healthy new year, successful new year, and a peaceful new year. With that, we drop the curtains on the summit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Indrani. Thank you, Bharat.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.